This lesson is on rotations, and the goal is to draw and identify rotation images of figures. The standard is geometry, congruence, number 4, number 2, and number 6. What you should understand by the end of this lesson is that rotations preserve distance, angle measures, and orientations of figures. All right, the rotation measurements that we're going to be working with are 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and 270 degrees. And we are going to be rotating all of our images around the origin, which is that point right there. And we're also going to be rotating them counterclockwise. So we're going to pretend that we're starting with this image right there. Now you could be at any quadrant, but I'm just going to say we're starting there so you can see which way we're moving. If we were to move this image 90 degrees, it would be moving one quadrant to the left. If image X was moving 180 degrees, it would be across from it. And if it were moving 270 degrees, it would be moving the opposite way of 90 degrees. So you can almost think of 270 degrees as being 90 degrees in the opposite direction. So notice the shapes are the same size, the angles are the same measures. All we're doing is turning them around the origin. So there's a real easy way to do this. You have to learn what you're going to do to each one of the points that belongs to the image. Pretty simple, so I'm going to show you how to do that. So where do you think you are? So as far as rotations, do you know how to rotate and change the points? Are you a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4? At the start of this lesson, please put that at the top of your notes right now. All right, so here are your rules. If you are moving a shape or an image 90 degrees, that's this one here, you write down the points of the pre-image or the image. You take your X and Y values. The after image would be your new X value would be the opposite of your Y value, and your new Y value would be your X value. We're going to do some so you'll understand how to do that. If you're doing 180 degrees, you don't swap your X and Y value. You simply change the sign of both of them. That puts you in the quadrant across from it. And if you're doing 270 degrees, your new X value becomes your Y value, and your new Y value is the opposite of what your X value was. Now, if you were rotating at 360 degrees, which you're not, but if you were, your values don't change. You're starting right back where you were in the first place. So the three that you're going to be working with are 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and 270 degrees. All right, here's our first shape. It says to graph the image of the rectangle. After a rotation, 90 degrees counterclockwise around the origin. So it should be in quadrant 4 or right there. But let's take a look. I have written down all 4 corners. It should be G prime, F prime, H prime, and E prime. And our rule says to take our X, Y value, and then we're going to do negative Y, X, the opposite of Y, X. So our first one should be the opposite of y would be 8, negative 1. The next one would be the opposite of negative 10 is 10, negative 1. The opposite of negative 8 is just 8. Leave x alone. And the last one, the opposite of negative 10, again is 10. Leave x alone, and that's negative 8. And now we're ready to graph those points. So I have 8, negative 1, which is right there. 10, negative 1 is right there. 8, negative 8 is here. 10, negative 8 is right here. And when I connect those, I have my rectangle rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise around the origin. All right, this one is asking us to graph this trapezoid after a rotation of 270 degrees. And if you remember, it is 270 degrees is 3 quadrants around to the left or 1 to the right, so it should end up right there in that quadrant. So we need to write down the points, and the rule says that we are going to take the y value, it's going to become the new x value, and take the opposite of the x value and it becomes the new y value. So I'm going to start with S, and it is 0, 0. R is 0, negative 4. T is 2, negative 3. And U is 2, negative 6. So when I apply the rule of y opposite of x, then I end up with 0, 0, negative 4, 0, negative 3, negative 2, and negative 6, negative 2. So we're going to graph those points. I have 0, 0, negative 4, 0, negative 3, negative 2, and negative 6, negative 2. And so when I graph them, or when I connect my points, that's what I get. And now it's your turn. Practice 1, you're to graph the image of the triangle after a 90-degree rotation. Practice 2, graph the image of the kite after a 180-degree rotation. Practice 3, graph the image of the rectangle after a 270-degree rotation. All right, graphing the coordinates is going to be really easy. All you have to do is you're given the coordinates, and all you have to do is apply the rule. So this one is to write the coordinates after a 90-degree rotation. The rule is to use opposite of y, x. So the opposite of y here is 8, and this one is 1. This one is going to be 8, 6. The opposite of y is 9, and this one is 2. So just use your rule and follow it and put down your new coordinates. The rule for a 180-degree rotation is simply to change the signs. We're not swapping out anything. So it's going to be 5, negative 10, 1, negative 10, and 8, negative 5. This one is really pretty simple, just following the rule. Okay, your turn. Practice 4. Write down the new coordinates after a rotation of 180 degrees. Practice 5. Write down the new coordinates after a rotation of 90 degrees. And the final one, write down the new coordinates after a rotation of 270 degrees. So, how do you feel about rotations after you've done the practice problems? Are you now at a 1, 2, 3, or 4? Write that down at the end of your notes or end of your practice problems. And let's get ready to do your 2 assignments on IXL. And that's it for this lesson. Bye.